we just have students that are very disrespectful to adults. They have no idea of how to respect an adult. Male students that don't respect women, women students that just accept that behavior and don't know any better or expect anything different. The big thing is the things that we see a lot on campus. I see, and Rodney and I have talked about it, I see a lot of male students, what I call hollering at girls across campus, and they respond to it, and that just makes me crazy. I got out of my car one day, and over where my office is, there's like a front porch area, and there were a couple of male students, and they're just hooping and hollering at these girls, and they're just thinking that they're all cool because these guys are yelling at them. And I walked up to him and I said, "Do you really think she thinks you're attractive because you're yelling at her?" He was like, "Well, yeah." I was like, that is so inappropriate. Right. So it's just that. It's that, and the male students wearing their pants hanging off their bottoms. They mumble when they talk. They can't speak clearly. Well, they can, but they choose not to, I suppose, or they've never thought to.
My name is Rodney Johnson, and I've been a professional comedian for 23 years. So what I want to talk to you about this morning is a lecture that I entitled Choice, Change, Work. And basically what it deals with is the choices that you make in life. See, no matter who raised you, whether it was your mother without your mother, your grandmother, your aunt, foster care, whoever raised you, at the end of the day, you all have a choice. You have a choice to make a decision and a change in your life. Now, I didn't come from the neighborhood Dr. Morris came from. I came from a middle-class neighborhood in Baltimore, Maryland. I was raised by my father, who was a preacher, my mother, who was a secretary. I have 2 brothers and a sister. I lived on a very middle-class street. Never wanted for anything, never had to worry about being shot at, never worried about drugs. I didn't have none of those issues in my life. All I had to do was get up and enjoy the day, go to school, and amount to something, because the springboard for me was pretty much in the middle. I didn't come from the bottom, and I didn't come from the top. But I had a choice. But I had 2 best friends. One name was Dwayne Jackson, another one was Darren McConnell. And we all 3 of us lived on the same street. So pretty much we had the same opportunity because we all had our mothers and fathers. We had a balanced family in America. Well, I'm 45 years old today. Dwayne Ronald Jackson is dead, died of alcoholism. And Darren McConnell's in the penitentiary. And you're probably saying, well, how did the other 2 didn't make it and y'all all started out at the same time? We all had choices. When I turned 18, I left Baltimore, Maryland. I went into the military. Dwayne Jackson went into the military, but he always liked to drink. And his drinking got him kicked out of the military. Now, no education and no job and no opportunity for life, he continued to deal in drinking. And eventually, it caused cirrhosis of the liver. He died at 40 years old. Matter of fact, he died on his birthday 40 years later. Darren McConnell got out, didn't go to school, didn't go into the military, went into the workforce. The pressures of having a young family got to him. He started hustling on the side. But he was just going to do a small hustle, little nickel and dime bags. And then the nickel and dime bags went to crack. And then crack went to cocaine. And from cocaine, he became a drug dealer. And eventually, every drug dealer gets popped. And if he doesn't get popped, he's paid enough money to stay from being popped. But eventually, it catches up to you. So he ended up going to prison. One day, I was on a show called The Parenthood, Robert Townsend's sitcom. And he was in the penitentiary. And as he was playing pool, he looked up. And he said, "Yo, hey, yo, that's my boy right there. That's my boy. Look at my boy right there." Ah! And everybody in the prison said, "Man, you don't know that joker." He said, "I do know him, man. That's Rodney Johnson, boy. I grew up with him. Y'all watch this, watch this. Wait till the credits come up. My boy name gonna come up." He was about to get into a fight because then nobody want to see Robert Townsend's sitcom while he in prison. But he said, "Anybody touch that TV, gonna deal with me." And they watched it, and sure enough, my name came up. And then at the end, one of the dudes said, "Well, if you know him, why are you here?" And he couldn't answer. Couldn't answer. Why was he there? When he knew me, and we came from a middle-class existence. I'm looking at the students in here today right now. I'm only going to ask you one question. How many of y'all were raised in a household and there was no father there? Just let me see your hands. See, when I was a kid growing up, if you didn't have a father in the house, it was different. I grew up at a time of good times. And my father was just like James Evans. And I was trying to find out why kids were so angry when I realized there was no male in the house to lead them. See, when James Evans would yell at his son and say, "Come here, what did I tell you to do?" or "Don't do that." See, I was used to that. But in school systems, when teachers or professors would talk to the young men, they never heard nobody talk to them like that. They thought it being disrespectful. That's why I would see that this confrontation between students and faculty is because there was never that authority in the house that they were accustomed to. And so, as a professional comedian who had toured the country performing, I would come to this campus like this. Matter of fact, the first time I met Mrs. Wooten, she came up to me after my performance and said, "Can you do that all the time?" Now, I knew what she was asking me, but I tried to play like I didn't. I said, "Do what?" She said, "Perform a comedy show clean and not use profanity." And I said, "Yes, that's what I do." And she said, "I'd like for you to come to my campus." And that was during the days of Def Jam, when what the public saw was all the black comedians cursing and using profanity, and most people thought it was funny. Some things are funny, and some things are not funny. And it's not so much the language, it's the content that you are displaying that you should be able to get the laughing about. But we don't look at that. You know what we look at? We look at what is cool. And your cool is pretty much predicated on your social circle, on what you think is cool based upon your circle. If everybody's walking around with their pants down, that's what we do. I don't have no problem with you walking around with your pants down if you in your bedroom pulling them up. But in public, you're displaying an image, and people have paid the way for the image for you to project should be a standard higher than what society in a social group implies that you should do. But I mean, it's not me. It's not me. It's just the things that I read and how I feel about myself. How do you feel about yourself is how you display it in public. And that's what you think you're worth, and that's what you'll do. I tell young girls all the time, your beauty is not on the outside. You should learn to be loved for the inside out, not the outside in. See, most young girls, the only attention they get from a male is based upon what they see externally, but they never figure out who you are internally. Women are emotional. Every woman I've ever met loves to do one thing: talk and listen. Women want to be heard. They don't want you to solve it, but hear me. Hear what I'm saying to you. But it's hard to be a woman today and dealing with a dude talking about, "Yo, hey, girl, what up? Let me holler at you." You, I'm talking, "Hey, boo." Hey, and you know what you girls do? Huh? What you say? You talking to me? Never calls you by your first, middle, or your last name. Call you by all types of things but that. And y'all respond. And the men, what can they bring to you? What do they bring? What can they bring? So people say sometimes to me, you know, if I'm in a certain setting, I might talk a little different. They go, "Man, you talk white." I said, "No, I talk to get the job." You can talk whatever you want to talk. I talk to get the job. I accomplished the mission. Yeah, when we were in the car coming down here, you know we was in the car talking about, "Yo, dog, let's go down here and see what's happening down here in Mississippi." Oh yeah, I'm going to talk like that. That's where I'm from. But when I got to get a bank loan, or if I'm talking to the President of the United States, I ain't going to be holding my lower extremity talking about, "Yo, B, you got it here, dog? I'm feeling you, man. I feel you. Where your boo at?" I'm not going to do that. But maybe when we on that basketball court at the White House, I might say, "Oh, you know, B, I'm going to back you down," because I can do that. All I'm saying is you got to be careful what you speak. And you can speak it as long as you understand in which time it's best to speak it. I read this book. It's called "If God Is So Good, Why Are Blacks Doing So Bad?" It's by James Dixon. Now, dwindling opportunities of verbal victims. Those who protest the use of proper English and are content to mastering sewer and street vocabulary become victims of their own verbiage. They place themselves at a verbal disadvantage and can only do pseudo sense of power. You cannot understand real power is only accessed through infiltrating and matriculating in established institutions such as education, government, corporate America, and the finance industry. Neither sewer nor street language works in any of these arenas. Adults who subscribe to these limited dialects are incapable of representing themselves or their children when necessary. When they are unable to communicate with teachers, prospective employers, potential clients, and their elected officials, what do they have to fall back on? How do you apply for a bank loan if you cannot communicate with the banker? This is why the thug for life mentality disempowers this generation. It is also why other races are making and taking advantage of opportunities that blacks are ill prepared for. Real power, real power, real power will never be accessed by a dumbed down generation. What you hear and speak will directly influence how you think and behave. The content of one's ongoing conversation will determine one's concepts, character, and conduct. Basically what he's saying is how you speak, people will perceive you that way. If I came in here this morning and said, yo, what up, yo, I'm feeling y'all, and I had on my baggy jeans, y'all be like, yo, he down with me. He understand my call. He feel me because he sound like me. I feel you because I've been where you are. Where you're sitting today, I was there in 1975. A man walked into my classroom. His name was Billy Murphy. He was about 5'2". He was a small man. He said, I know y'all look at me and say that my size is small in stature, but I am great because my mind has no limits. He said, I'm telling you today to make choices that will change your life. And Billy Murphy was one of the #1 prominent lawyers in Baltimore, Maryland. Even to this day, he still practices law. He was the lawyer who defended Marion Barry when he was up for the first smoke cracking incident. He was the lawyer. He's a prominent man, but he said education is the key that unlocks the door to your future and your potential. They can measure agility, they can measure ability, but nobody can measure your heart. And you have to have the heart to be committed to what you're trying to do in life. So as a young man, I had to make some choices that Dwayne and Darren didn't make. The choice was my mother had worked too hard for me to fail. You understand? You got to find something to connect to. And for me, it was my mother. It was my mother getting up every day to make sure what I had was necessity to survive. And I wanted to be a positive influence in her life. So at 21, when I got out of the military, I made the change to be a professional comedian. And some people discouraged me and said, well, how you going to make it in that? I said, I believe I have the ability to make it. And I made the choice. And once you make a choice, you have to make a change. And the change cannot come from the people around me. It cannot come from my family. The change has to come from in me. And I had to make the change and say, I want to be successful. I'm not saying I want to be as big as Eddie Murphy. I just wanted to be successful where I could provide for my family, live a decent life, and give a good account of my life, because you only have one. So after I made the choice, I had to make a change. And the change was to start going to comedy clubs and working and listening and communicating and meeting people who could help me that were in front of me to look back and say, man, this is how you do this. This is how we get here. And then I made the change. And then the final thing that you have to do, and most people don't do because they don't want to do because it's the hardest of all, is you got to do the work. You got to do the work. You can make a choice all day long. You can sit with your friends and choose what you want to do all day long. You can make a choice. It's easy. You know what? I want to be a millionaire. Great. But what change are you going to make in your life to be the millionaire? And finally, what work are you going to put in? Because it requires it. It requires a choice, it requires change, and it requires work. And for you young ladies, I am telling you, because I know from experience, if you set the bar for yourself this high, any guy worth having will rise to the occasion to jump over to get you. Don't lower your standards to appease him. Raise the bar. If your name ain't Boo, don't respond. If your name ain't let me holler at you, don't respond. Only respond to the name that you were given. That's the name. Don't let them deface you. Don't let them put you down. And don't let your identity be connected to how you look externally. It has to be an internal connection. How do you feel about you? And if you feel that you're ugly, if you feel that you're trifling, and guess what? We as men find it, and that's what we pounce on. If you don't feel that you're good looking, I'll play to your good looking to get what I want, and then I will leave you, and then you really feel worthless because you already felt that you was good looking, and he just pounced on what you was feeling. If you feel confident, we will rise to confidence. I'm telling you, if a guy don't come to your room at the decent hour, don't let him come at the late hour. Why would you let him in at midnight when he won't come at 7? How he talks to you at 7 is how he should talk to you at midnight. And if he don't talk to you across the campus because he don't want nobody to know that he down with you and you down with him because he trying to play you, and you, then don't talk to him. I'm trying to mess up all y'all game. Because what I'm telling you is what he leaves you, he will leave you, and whatever he deposited will stay with you. There are mothers now struggling to raise 2 kids by 2 different baby daddies, and one is in jail, and one they can't find, and you got to pick it up, and then you got to now be the head of the family, and that's not how you were designed. You were designed to be a lover and a nurturer. So make that